Good morning everyone and welcome to my presentation. My name is Ian and I am speaking to you from Singapore. It is an honor to be able to present at this inaugural Global Leopard Conference about leopards of the Malay Peninsula. At present, most of the research and understanding about leopards are from Africa and India to a lesser extent, as the lineup of speakers at this event shows. I would try to rectify this a little by sharing knowledge about leopards in this little-known part of its very extensive global range. Hopefully, at the end, you will gain a better appreciation of how special and different they are from what we normally picture leopards to be, and worthy of our attention and increased conservation efforts. Here is the outline of my talk. We begin with some background of how and when leopards came to this part of the world from their origin in Africa. Then I will focus on the one greatest distinguishing characteristic of leopards in Malaysia, which is the almost complete dominance of melanism in the population. Here I postulate about the possible reasons for this interesting phenomenon that arose from the unique local circumstances of geography and ecology, in particular the competitive dynamics between leopards and other felid species, which is also the subject of my current research. This is followed by an update on population and status in West Malaysia, before ending with an account of human-animal conflict situations and current conservation efforts for this species in the country. As you would have learned from the previous speaker, leopards of Southeast Asia belong mostly to the Indochinese subspecies, which historically occurred throughout the mainland from Myanmar and across Thailand to Indochina and down the Malay Peninsula, with the Javan leopard a distinct subspecies endemic to that island. By the late Pleistocene, around 300,000 years ago, leopards have migrated eastwards out of Africa, across Asia to their furthest eastern extent on Java. During the cooler glacial intervals that lasted from 10 to 30,000 years, lower sea levels partially or wholly exposed the Sunda Shelf, parts of which consisted of woodland savanna and river plains that encouraged the movement of megafauna, including the leopard, towards the Sunda Islands of Sumatra, Java, and Borneo. With the end of the last glacial maximum around 16,000 years ago, these islands were once again isolated. 19th century discovery of leopard fossils on Sumatra proved the existence of the species there, while accounts of black tigers and other large cats from European colonial times suggest that they persisted there until quite recently. The Indochinese leopard is in dire straits today, and Malaysia is one of only 2 countries where viable populations remain. Protecting leopards here is therefore crucial to the continued survival of this critically endangered animal. There are 2 Malay names for leopards. Harimau Kumbang translates into beetle tiger for melanistic individuals, while Harimau Bintang, meaning star tiger, refers to non-melanistic ones. A fascinating fact that many people are unaware of is the predominance of melanistic leopards on the peninsula. Though a long-observed and noted phenomenon by European naturalists like Henry Ridley, it was not until 2010 that this was officially verified by Science in a landmark paper from Dr. Kai Kawanishi and colleagues, where it was found that there were only 2 instances and locations in Peninsular Malaysia where non-melanistic leopards have been documented. In hundreds of camera-trapped images from field sites across the country, only melanistic individuals were recorded. Although black leopards can also be found elsewhere in parts of South Asia, on Java, and even in Africa, they are uncommon, and nowhere else is there such a concentration, making this a globally unique leopard population. What could be the reasons for the near fixation of melanism in Malayan leopards? Kawanishi et al. Estimated it could take as short as 1,000 years for this to occur from genetic drift alone. If the population on the peninsula was isolated from mainland Southeast Asia due to the constriction at the northern border between Malaysia and Thailand called the Kra Isthmus, a well-known biogeographic boundary between Indo-Malayan and Sundaic species. However, genetic analysis of felid species in the region in 2014 found very little distinction between leopards from north and south of the isthmus, in contrast with other cats like marbled cats, golden cats, and tigers. The seemingly uninterrupted exchange of genes with leopards outside the peninsula would cast doubt on genetic drift as a likely reason. This leaves natural selection as a more plausible cause. Here, various advantages of a darker coloration for animals in equatorial regions have been postulated, such as higher immunity against infections and better camouflage under low-light conditions of the rainforest understory. So what is unique about the Malay Peninsula that makes melanism strongly advantageous for leopards to make it widespread throughout the population? By a process of deduction, two preconditions appear important. The first is the dimly lit environment of a moist forest habitat, where the understory remains dark even during daylight hours. The second important prerequisite is the existence of a more dominant competitor in the form of the tiger, one that has a very similar trophic niche with strong overlap in prey species. It is the ability to avoid confrontation with tigers through better concealment that melanism confers that I believe is the most plausible reasons for its fixation in Malayan leopards through the process of natural selection. The only locality where these two conditions are fulfilled is on the Malay Peninsula and to a lesser extent other parts of Southeast Asia. Another supporting observation is the higher frequency of melanistic leopards in the rainforest of West Java, where tigers were once present. A closer look at the community of Southeast Asian forests reveals that tigers are not the only competition faced by leopards. In Peninsular Malaysia, more than 20 carnivore species are found, including 6 other felids ranging in size from the leopard cat to the tiger. From the limited data we have from camera traps thus far, there seems to be little separation of temporal activity pattern between tigers and leopards, while the low density of large ungulate prey species like gao and samba in the rainforest would suggest greater competition for smaller sized prey like barking deer and wild boar. Thirdly, the relatively uniform habitat compared to places like India and Africa also limits the role of spatial segregation in avoiding competition between the two. Again, these factors reinforce the importance and advantage of visual concealment that melanism confers for leopards in the wet tropics, allowing them to operate in the same spatial temporal niche as tigers in Malaysia. As if tigers weren't enough, leopards in this part of the world also must contend with the slightly smaller clouded leopard, a species more specialized and adapted for the rainforest. My own research into the 4 largest wildcats of Southeast Asia found that the very close similarity in size and diet between leopards and clouded leopards suggests intense competition between the two wherever they are sympatric. The fact that leopards, which we know are habitat generalists, can persist alongside a suite of forest-adapted carnivores is a testament to their incredible adaptability. Even so, the competition could have been overwhelming in Sumatra after it became an island, and the leopard population could no longer be supplanted, perhaps contributing to its eventual extirpation. This has important implications for their conservation in other parts of Southeast Asia, and Malaysia in particular, where maintaining prey species diversity and abundance is crucial to ensuring the viability of wild felid populations. Until very recently, there were no quantitative evidence-based estimates of the number of leopards on the Malay Peninsula, one obstacle being the inability to distinguish individual leopards by their coat pattern, so essential for spatial recapture analysis of camera trap images. A breakthrough came in 2015 when it was discovered that the rosettes on melanistic leopards can be seen quite clearly in infrared images. By manually forcing the cameras to take pictures only in infrared mode, researchers were able to run the SCR to produce density estimates in a forest near the eastern coast. Based on an assessment of the land area where leopards are likely to be extant, a population estimate for Malaysia was calculated based on a density estimate of 0.5 to 5 leopards per 100 square kilometers. With the Malayan tiger population assessed to be around 100 individuals remaining, I am confident that leopard numbers are at least a multiple of this figure. Additionally, I am optimistic that fair numbers are still found outside of protected areas, so long as forest cover is sufficient. The species is presently accorded the highest level of legal protection in the country, where harvesting and trade is completely disallowed. I apologize for these rather unsettling images, which are examples of the types of human-leopard conflict occurring today in Malaysia, ranging from roadkills to attacks on livestock and people. Typically, the conflict animal is captured by the Wildlife Department using baited cages. A health assessment is made and the individual translocated from where the incident took place. In the last 3 years, the number of incidents reported in the media increased from 3 in 2020 to 8 per year in 2021 and 2022, with certain states being hotspots for leopard conflict. I would say that all these involve animals outside of protected areas, and hence my view is that the population estimate from the IUCN is likely to be conservative. What can be done for the conservation of Malayan leopards? For one, we know very little about the basic ecology of the species in the country, so more field studies and research is needed, particularly population density estimates from more localities to refine baseline population estimates. Second, more public awareness and empathy for the species, the role of education being important for both rural people facing risk of livestock losses and the younger generation as well, to learn to coexist peacefully by accepting their presence and protection of livestock, rather than forcibly removing individuals that could potentially cause more harm in the long run. There are organizations protecting leopards as part of their larger conservation activity in-country, Panthera included, so thank you. However, they remain under the radar, so to speak, and by speaking to you today, I sincerely hope to raise the visibility of the Malayan leopard and convince you and conservation organizations of their irreplaceable, unique status in this part of the world. I leave for your enjoyment some images of the Malayan leopard, including, most surprisingly, a non-melanistic individual captured recently, the exception that proves the rule of near fixation of melanism. Notably, except for perhaps one or two photos, the majority were taken outside protected areas.